Hey, so I'm going to make two videos tonight, and the first one is this. Um, but the subject of children, or specifically other people's children, and the role that adults play in interaction with those children in arguably necessary situations. So, um, I'm going to quote two things that I've seen in relation to this. Slightly different situations, well, considerably different situations, but both involve the need arguably of some sort of interaction from adults. Firstly was from the series What Would You Do? I've quoted that before in my videos. I find they have a lot of scenarios online. Sorry, just straightening up my jumper there. Um, so this episode was about a little girl. Um, she's with her mother in a sort of cafe, and the cafe is decorated by expensive artwork, $300 each. Anyway, the little girl's doodling away on a sketch pad, and her mother makes small talk to some other women in the cafe. And then her mother goes off to the ladies. Anyway, the little girl um, starts doodling on these expensive paintings, not priceless, but expensive nonetheless. Um, and the experiment is to see what people would do. Now, I have to say, I was surprised by this one. I thought that people would sort of back off and think, "Oh, it's someone else's child" or something like that. They all intervened pretty much. I'm pleased they did actually, because obviously the little girl doesn't know what she's doing is wrong, but um, someone needs to tell her because that's someone's work. Probably hours have went into it, and little girl's destroying it in seconds. So it's an interesting experiment. At one point, they try different setups. They try the mother kind of walking away without paying. They try the mother being really irresponsible and refusing to pay, this sort of thing. Um, the thing about What Would You Do is they're always like 7-minute videos, but I suspect there's the actual recording times significantly longer. Um, so in that situation, people were intervening, and they recognized the little girl was destroying someone's livelihood, not intentionally. I mean, this wasn't like a badly behaved child. She was, you got the impression that the actress was sort of making an innocent mistake, but it made me think that sometimes, people do need to step in and point out to children the difference between right and wrong, even if it's not something that the child is deliberately doing out of bad behaviour. Um, so that was the first scenario. The second thing I've just come across was a 1.5 minute news clip from last year, but it basically was a social experiment in which a little girl was left in it looked like a railway terminal, I believe, busy railway terminal in central London. And the experiment was to see, like, the setup was that she was a lost little girl. This wasn't What Would You Do, by the way. This was, I think, ITA News was reporting on this experiment. And nobody intervened. Nobody. No, the little girl wasn't in any real danger. It was a setup. Her mother was looking at a safe distance, and so the experiment was to see would adults intervene if a little girl was lost, and the little girl was obviously playing up like she was, crying, and she was, well, not necessarily crying, but I think she was hugging her teddy bear and, on her own. So the issue with that one is, why is it in the first example people intervene, but the second example people don't? In the first example, and some people were actually putting their hands on the child and taking her down, which I thought was slightly risky. I think in the second one, though, the general rationale, especially in this country, for people not getting involved with that, especially men, is the fear of being of other people misunderstanding the situation and assuming that you're a paedophile. That is the general concern in this country about not getting involved with anything to do with children that aren't your own. Now, this is a difficult one because I was looking at comments underneath, and people were generally debating the points I'm talking about here. Um, one guy said, yes, there is a risk that you would be, falsely accused of being a paedophile. However, the caveat to that is, what if you woke up the next morning, turned on the news, and a little girl's body had been found somewhere, and you had seen her and you done nothing? So it's kind of like choosing personal awkwardness versus the safety of a little girl. I haven't been in that situation, but if I was, I would like to think that, well, I'm certainly not judging anyone else's decision, but I'm just thinking about, I'm reflecting on what I might do. It's a very difficult one. I'd like to think that I'd put the little girl or little boy before myself, but as an adult, especially an adult male, you do have to be slightly cautious because Britain, we have had examples of hysteria being fueled by the tabloid press over the problem of child predators. And the thing is, it is a real phenomenon. These people do exist. There are dangerous people out there who do prey on children. But, in a busy shopping centre or a busy transport terminal, sometimes children children's minds wander. They get distracted by something. Sometimes they do get cut off from the parents. And I think it's unfair to say that the parents are bad parents because there's no parent in the world that could be a super parent. And I mean, obviously, good parents will try their level best, absolutely, to look after their children, but these things happen. So I don't think we could say it's necessarily bad parenting. Um, anyway, it's just a thought-provoking thing. Would you, as an adult, intervene and bring the little girl to the police, or ask her where she last saw her parents, or something like that? I would like to think I would do something because the humanitarian side of me would think this is a frightened little girl or little boy. They're all on their own. Someone has to help them, and I can't just wait for someone else to do it. But then the other side of me would think, well, yeah, but I'm an adult man, and people will get the wrong idea. So it's very difficult. Now, the charity NSPCC has said that the public concerns about that shouldn't trump acting for the child's safety. Sadly, we do occasionally get cases of child murder and so on. So, and even in this situation, it wouldn't necessarily be danger from another person. If the little girl's lost, she could, wander out onto a busy road, or, and she's quite young. She's like 7 or 8, I guess. Um, maybe even younger. So the whole setup to this is about the role that adults have in terms of interacting with children that aren't their own. As a general point on all of this, so that's just two situations we've spoken about. But as a general point, I do believe that the first and foremost responsibility absolutely lies with the parents. Um, Now, I'm not one of the sort of people that think, parents have to be sort of, I'm trying to think of the right words to describe what I'm talking about here. I know people cannot be perfect, but a decent parent will take responsibility for the children no matter what, because the child cannot differentiate the difference between right and wrong. Um, until at least the age of 12, the adult is responsible for their behaviour. So I've been in situations where I've been in coffee shops, or actually it was a train station. I was waiting in. What had happened was I missed my last train, and they had this, like, it was in Paris, and they had this kind of waiting area where people could kind of sleep who weren't who'd missed a train. Um, and there was a family nearby. Anyway, it was shattered because I'd been awake all day, and um, I'd I'd been stressed out with the situation and so on and so on, and I just wanted to rest until the next day when I could get the earliest next train. And I remember this little girl in the family kept coming up and kind of poking my bags. And, I was shattered, and I was quite irritated about it. I didn't yell at the little girl, but I remember kind of gesturing to the family, like, can you do something here? I don't think they weren't French and they weren't English speaking either, but something like that is a universal language. And I remember the family did nothing; they just kind of laughed, and I was thinking, what the hell? And eventually, after a few minutes, they got like a kind of gesture for the older girl to come away. But the thing is, I think in a lot of these situations, I don't blame the child. I blame the adults who don't take responsibility. So if your child is going up to a stranger and irritating them, or doing something that is dangerous, like if the stranger's drinking a coffee and minding their own business, don't let your kid run around a busy coffee shop. That's something I think is really irresponsible. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on the role of adults' interaction with children that aren't their own.